Welcome to Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast, where we hear real stories from real people and we tackle all sorts of fun topics in the areas of business, marketing, entrepreneurship, mindset, the arts, and, well, life itself. It's amazing what you will pick up. Thanks for joining us. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Darren Saul here, your host of Playing with Perspective, the suspended animation podcast. Yes, I'm back. We're back. It's episode 195. Taking control of your health and well-being. The future wellness of your life depends on it. With the fantastic Jeff Withers. How you doing, Jeff?
Not bad, Darren. Not bad. Not bad at all. How about you?
Pretty good? Very well, sir. It's, a beautiful sunny day. Spring's on the way.
Yep.
I'm feeling good.
Well, can't get better than that, can you?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate you coming on the show.
My pleasure.
I love this topic, and I'm really looking forward to delving further into, everything that you do. But I thought I'd give everybody a little bit of a intro or a snapshot into who you are. So for all the audience out there, Jeff is the proud co-founder of 9 Pillar Lifestyle, 9 Pillar Health and Nutrition, and 9 Pillar Feng Shui, and co-creator of the Lifestyle Success Formula, helping individuals break free of their behavioural blockages, emotional frustrations, non-serving health regimens, and limiting beliefs and unproductive mindsets. He has a passion for and love of all things nature and human, a belief that drives his vision for reigniting the lives of others. Jeff strongly disagrees with the common approach to health and well-being, which focuses on mental health or dieting or exercise, and then addresses that one area only. Instead, he believes that true health and well-being requires addressing the individual's body, mind, home, work, and even play, because all have a collective impact on the individual's perceived level of wellness. Love it. It's too true, too true.
Wow. That sounds impressive. I like that.
Sounds impressive. That's very, very good. But Jeff, tell us a bit more about, your story. How did you get into this line of work? Why you love it so much? I'd love to kind of get the backstory a little.
Yeah, it's interesting, Darren. I mean, let's say, without going too deep because it would take too long, but I mean, Maria, my better half, and myself, we were doing normal things. She was working in a job. I was actually teaching. Then I became involved in psychology. And it was okay. We're enjoying life like everyone else does, Yeah. But you get that feeling where something isn't right. You just know there's something else you have to do. And by sheer luck, a person that I did my NLP master training through said she's got this particular thing overseas. You're interested in being a part of it. So we got involved. And it was brilliant, except that, long story short, that didn't go well with her and it left us in a bad place. But that was what springboarded us into what we do now. So what was bad actually became fantastic.
Wow.
Because it led us to a world where people don't always know the name, but they'll know things that it does, which is like I Ching. Have you heard of I Ching?
I have heard of I Ching. It's something to do with energy. It's energy, yeah, your energy.
Elements of energy. I mean, this is pretty good. Well done. You're 1 in 100 people that know about it. That's pretty cool.
I think I've been watching too many martial arts movies. They always talk about the I Ching.
Yeah, but that don't talk about. Anyway, that's not a part of it. Anyway, so that was really cool. And the guy we were learning from at the time is half Scottish, half Chinese, which is a very interesting person to talk to. You can imagine that mix. And we learned a lot. And we spent some time with him overseas, learning and traveling with him. We go to conferences, presenting and workshops. It was really good stuff. Yeah. But, and there's a big but, again, there was something missing. We didn't know. And then when COVID hit, it was a good chance. We had no choice but to sit back and regroup. So we're saying, that's not enough. So Marie, being the person she is, decided she wanted to study Feng Shui. Okay. Now, the beauty is that we did our homework, thank goodness, because Feng Shui, how it's taught in Australia, is pretty, sorry if I offend anybody, but it's pretty ordinary. Right. It doesn't go very deep. A bit like the American version. It just makes it like a nice westernized, feel good, put a painting here, put a plant there. Yeah. We found the guy who is probably one of the few non-Asian, as in he's from New Zealand, believe it or not, who teaches masters in Feng Shui. That's the level he's at. And so he actually is the person who created, not created, he identified and built the model around the Southern Hemisphere Feng Shui, which is not the same as what people think, because North and South are different.
Okay.
So Marie did all this study, it's amazing stuff she learned, and I was on the side watching. And I was getting really excited. I thought, well, I can read what she's reading, that's enough for me. So that was good. And then we were talking to him, he came to Australia for, we had met up with him in face-to-face, and he has another side we didn't know about, which was health and nutrition. I said, oh, that's interesting. Because he's also an acupuncturist and a Chinese medicine practitioner and all these things. I thought, oh, wow.
Good.
And so the penny dropped. So in those 2 years, just up until this year, we spent 2 years studying classic Feng Shui and holistic health and well-being, if you want, which was Chinese medicine, Ayurveda, five-element theory, yin-yang theory.
Wow.
And it was just like boom, 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 boom. And it left us thinking, we've got the magic egg, if there's such a thing, because what had happened is all led us to this point where we said, in life, now I'm already qualified, as I said before, a psychologist. I could do life coaching if you wanted to do. You can do all these things, but they didn't do enough. But when you add in the person, and then where they live and work, and then their approach to their health, all of a sudden you've got this amazing cocktail. And so that's where the story led us to, which we're at now. But that's not enough, because then we started saying, you know what, I like what you've done, but I'd like to do something more. So we started writing our own stuff on top of that.
Wow.
So we just kept on going, and we're still going every day as something new comes up, because there's one thing I think I learned a term years ago called being a leading learner.
Ah, I like that. A leading
Yeah.
learner.
In other words, the day you stop learning is the day you can't lead anybody or do anything effective, because you put yourself into a shoebox.
Yep. And they also say, like, the best way to master anything is to teach it.
Absolutely. I learned that when I was a teacher in the early days.
Yeah.
Literally, because when you had to teach it, it's amazing how much it all fits into place in a big story. Yeah.
Definitely.
So that's the story. And we've got the stage now where we are just simply trying to establish ourselves, because we're not business people. That's not our role. We see ourselves as educators, and then we love that. But of course, you've got to be a business person to the extent you have to pay the bills.
That's right. You got to keep the vehicle going so you can help everybody.
Absolutely. So that's where we are now. So we're still writing and developing, but we're also looking how can we make this available to everybody. So the story continues. So that's a very short, concise, little.
Love it. And so, I mean, it's really, your take on things is really a three-dimensional approach to health and wellness, rather than just looking at it from one angle or the other. And I know that, I'm sure that in some more Eastern philosophies, this would have been more prominent way of thinking. Whereas in Western society, we never really did that as much. It was more of a band-aid approach, or, just things in isolation. Why do you think that's the case?
Well, so I almost totally agree with you. Unfortunately, in the East, I mean, people, for example, in the East as well here, take Feng Shui.
Yeah.
They know, but they don't know necessarily about the depth of personality work, etc., or they don't know about, for example, how the mind works, because they focus on that.
Yeah.
Health people will know more, but then they will also live out certain parts. So I don't think we've found anybody yet, including our amazing coach and mentor, that has put the combination together that we have, because it is what was the 3Ds? That was your term that I picked up on the other day, and I loved it. I really appreciate that. I use it everywhere now. 3-dimensional.
I just love, it is, because it's really you have to look at things from all angles, and they're all interconnected.
They are totally interconnected. See, but the 3 dimensions, if I can say it right here and now, one is personal genius, right? Is your personal genius. Yeah. And I'll explain all these in more depth if we go, perhaps. But personal genius. Second one is your living environment, and the third one is your manifested presence.
Nice.
Now, these 3 treasures are literally they're treasures. And anything that you find in life, any goal, any issue, concern, obstacle, whatever it might be, will fall into one of those 3. But so therefore, they're the 3 dimensions. But like any 3-dimensional object, take one dimension away, and what happens to the object?
It doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't
exist. It collapses. It's gone. Yeah. And it's the same thing. We've got to look after all our 3 treasures in life, which is part of what this all came out of. Because it's like, as a pirate, right? If I'm a pirate, I own a treasure, and I bury it and I leave it alone, I've got my treasure, but nothing's happening. I'm not using it. What a waste of time.
That's right.
Or I can dig it up and spend it, then I've got no treasure left.
Yep.
Or I can invest it wisely.
Love it.
And as it grows, I can use what's growing with it, but keep on growing it.
Okay.
And that's the 3 treasures.
So maybe let's elaborate on those 3 steps again for people, just to really understand, what this actually means and how we can use it.
Well, yeah, so the three treasures, they're a part of a bigger model, which I won't do right now because that would just be too much at the moment. But the three treasures are, I suppose, an indication or an approach how to, if you like, to lead your life. Yep. So personal genius basically is like a foundation. That's really interesting because we know, for example, you have two things in your life. You have a natal personality,
yep,
and I'll explain that in a second, and you have an emergent personal ability.
Right.
Okay. So your natal, it's when you're born. You're born, obviously, the normal way, like we all do. So you've got some genes and some behaviours and mannerisms that you picked up from your parents through the genetic pool,
yep,
including your grandparents. That's lovely. But you've also been influenced by the lifestyle they led, or anything happening in that birth period, what they call it, gestation period. And that's fine. You bring that with you. But part of that natal is also, this is where a lot of people in science get a bit confused, because the moment you take your first breath is the point where you have life. And so it comes together. So you've got all those influences genetically,
yep,
and you've got, because it's your first breath, there's cosmic energy in the world all the time. We know that. That's the science as well. So you've come in at that point to that particular energy, and you assume that energy inside you.
mm-hmm.
And that's your natal self. That's who you are. And we measured that. We've actually worked out assessments. We can tell you exactly what that is for you, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. And that'll never change. That's fixed. That's why I call it personality. It'll never change.
Right.
However, from that point on, you're changing.
That's
because
right.
of what you see your parents do, or what happens at school, or with friends and so forth. So you're trying to put on what we call your superhero underpants on the outside. They have to be the person they want me to be.
Yep.
So that's your emergent personality.
This is really like nature versus nurture, isn't it?
If you want to call that old-fashioned way, yeah. Trust you to do that. But I mean, yeah, it is. And the thing is, there's more to it, but that's the basic point. We have a natal and emergent. And we say to people, we measured both for you first up. Which one do you want to be?
Mm-hmm.
How much of each do you want to have in your life? Which ones are serving you? Because you've got control. You can choose by learning. And so as you do that, it's okay, let's look at where values sit in with this. Where do your passions sit in with this? Your beliefs, your attitudes, where your characteristics, and so forth. And then all that builds in, and that's your personal genius. That's the foundation. That's you.
Gotcha. I love it.
Yeah. And so the next step from there, the next treasure is your living environment, which is your home, and at work as well. Let's work on the home for a second. And this is where what we do and ordinary Feng Shui people differentiate altogether. Feng Shui would say, let's put your home in the right colours and the right whatever. I'm talking about wealth corners and career corners, which is not classic Feng Shui. That's Western. Okay. But the point is, that's what I do. Now, see, here's the thing. And Marie, my better half, is a genius in this, but she's also a trained interior designer as well.
Yeah.
So we know that you can't just put stuff out. Like designers come in the home and they'll ask you sometimes, what colour do you like? What type of furniture you like? And they'll supply that to keep you happy. But if you've got a natal personality, there is a certain energy flow inside you that when it's matched, gives you an unconscious feeling of happiness and support and nurture.
Right. So you gotta really have something that's in line with your personality.
Exactly. And that's the true work of Feng Shui in a home environment, because Feng Shui is about people, place, time, and space.
Oh, okay. Love it.
So, you can have the most beautiful home in the world, and I call it the house. It's not a home because it hasn't got that sense of what you need. So, the same for the workplace, but that's a bit harder because it's out of people's control sometimes. But so they're the first two treasures. And of course, that living environment includes your actual environment around you, the physical environment. Because, like most people probably know but don't realise the power of the toxicity, if you like, of EMFs, electromagnetic fields, like out of the TV, out of the computer, out of your phone.
Wow.
Do you use a microwave?
Yes, of course.
If I told you, for example, that the microwave was designed by Russia as a weapon of war.
Oh, God.
Okay. And that's what it's designed to be. And it changes the molecular structure of food. That's how it heats it up.
Oh, my God.
So when you eat something after you have in the microwave, you're not eating what you started with.
Ouch. That's why it tastes different as well.
Well, put it this way, there was a case years ago where, to prove the point, there was an operation and there was blood transfusion to be done. And the doctor, in his infinite wisdom, used the microwave to warm the blood.
Oh.
The person died
because
the blood structure had changed and no longer matched it.
Oh, no. That's crazy.
These are the things in the background. Your air conditioning, your carpets, they're all affecting your quality of lifestyle.
Yep.
It's all part of living environment. So we have to look at that, the big picture. And then, of course, the third one is manifested presence, which says, okay, what's your energy like? What's your vitality? What gets you out of bed in the morning? What makes you want to stay alive and go out and explore and do things? So that sort of, it comes out of this first two, if you like. So it's a building point to that.
Right.
But you can't have that if you think the first two.
Yes.
Obviously.
Yes.
So, you know, and it goes in quite deep, but it's really powerful when you actually stop and pull them apart. And we do that. We pull them apart and look at everything for the person first to see exactly what's happening for them. So these treasures, we've all got them. We don't all use them very well.
Yeah. And so it's fascinating. And so, you know, when you meet people, when you work with people, you really take the time to what's the word, to break that all down and really understand where people are coming from those three different areas. And then you help them with tips and strategies to optimize their 3D wellness that meet all those three requirements in a way.
Yeah, that's nicely put. We have what we call a 3-treasure diagnostic, which we make people fill out. It's quite lengthy, and they do it by hand. We don't let them do it on a computer. They've got to write it. When we said before about teaching and everything, you've got to write it.
Wow.
Because then you actually consciously think of something in a different way.
Yes.
And then they've come to us with an issue they've got, right? But we know that obviously when we explore those 3 treasures, we can discover all these other things in their life which may not be going well for them, because we know that if we work on the issue at hand, we can find out outcomes at work. But we also know that nothing else changes. It'll go back where it came from in most cases.
And so it's really a much more all-round, what's the word? Much more. It's a much deeper approach to making change. Yeah,
and it's very sustainable because of what the work that's been done. And then I've had people say, "Oh, we do similar." I said, but the thing is, what they don't realise is the depth we go to in each of them, because you've got to dig deep. And people sometimes don't want to do it.
Yeah.
You know, or they don't see, but then they start to realise that, oh wow, off they go. You know. So that's and then obviously we have lots of different one-on-one coachings or workshops or programs people do depending on what they need, because we've identified where they need to be. Nice. So it just starts there, then away we go.
Okay, wow. And so if just at a very high level, I mean, I just kind of want to discuss this more at a high level, and, you know, obviously everybody's different, but, you know, what are some of the strategies that you would recommend people, or tips, or, you know, tips or tricks that people should start thinking about or start doing to help them realign those 3 areas? Anything?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, the obvious thing first up is, hey, do some reading, do some open thinking. Don't get caught up in old ways of doing things because it doesn't work.
Yeah.
But reality is, if you look at the 3 areas, without even doing any studies, the first thing is, where we all start with is food, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
We all have food. So the first thing is to start reading labels and stop buying stuff that isn't going to do you any good.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And not because it's a diet or anything else. You're born with a certain body constitution, and that constitution will dictate what your body doesn't want to have. And if you keep on giving it what it doesn't want to have, it will say, thanks very much, I'm going to fall over now.
Yeah. And you kind of know as well through experience what you respond to and what you don't respond to.
You do, because, you know, that's the premise of Chinese medicine, is that listen to your body, because the body knows.
Yeah.
Which medicine and Western science doesn't say at all. It says the opposite.
Yeah,
but so the tip, first of all, is buy local.
Yep. Okay.
Fresh local. Don't buy oranges that might have been frozen and it took 6 months to get from California, for example.
Right.
Think about what vegetables go with which organ, because we have 5 yin organs and 5 yang organs.
Wow.
And they have a certain function, and those functions link to different parts of the body. So if you want to have health, you need to think, what are you giving your body? What time of year are you giving that to the body?
Wow.
How are you cooking it? How are you eating it? Because, you know, I've heard some people say to me, everything starts with the mind. I think that's lovely. However, I don't know that's true, because the mind responds very well as well. It's a processor. So if we're feeding it the wrong food, it can't function properly.
That's right.
So we've got to think what we're putting in our body. Example, prostate health. It's something which every man over the age of 25 has got a problem with, whether they know it yet or not.
Yep.
So yes, in extreme cases, you would go to a hospital if you have to, in the last case scenario. But in the meantime, think about what foods you're eating that are going to enhance your kidney and your bladder, because those are the areas that control the prostate.
Yeah.
So, you know, and there are certain foods, because those foods and the organs all link back to the 5 elements that I Ching talks about,
Oh, I love it.
right? So it's, you know, it's not science like in Western science. There's no sort of, you know, manual. It's very metaphoric, but by crikey,
Yeah.
it's accurate.
Yeah, that's right. Like in general, in Western medicine, you know, it's more of a band-aid approach and more of a generic approach, whereas this is a much more intuitive,
Yes.
personal approach.
Yes, and the thing about Chinese medicine is a basic saying, and that is that food is medicine.
Oh yeah, I like that.
All right, you eat the right food, you will have the right medicine. If you go back and look at additional cultures, you'll find there's a guy called Weston Price back in the 30s.
Right.
I didn't know him personally, but I mean, some might think I do. But anyway, he got back to the 30s, and he was a dentist, and he went across to all the traditional cultures, Aborigines, Maoris, and Africa, etc., Eskimos, and he studied them, and he found that where there was no Western influence, they had perfect bone structure in their face, perfect teeth, were obese, etc., etc. But when he found cultures, particularly in Africa, and I've seen the pictures of it, where they had some contact, the teeth were terrible. The face shapes weren't quite what they used to be. And so they were changing. And that's purely because they were then adopting Western ways, which are very unsuitable for people. They really aren't. So that was a good case in point where if you stick to what the elements and what nature says, then you have more chance, because we're part of nature after all, aren't we? At the end of the day,
I suppose I'm assuming that as well, if you took all those countries that were, or those cultures that weren't adulterated yet or influenced by Western culture, and you studied them, all of them each of them might even do different things, get the same result, because they were doing what worked for them.
And what was right for them. I mean, pretty gruesome from Australian or Western standards. For example, a certain tribe in Africa would kill a monkey purely for its organs inside. Would need the flesh. They don't want the flesh because the flesh doesn't work for you. Flesh doesn't. You don't need the flesh. They would go for things like kidneys and the livers, etc., because they're looking for the blood content, because that was the source of iron for them.
That's right.
So therefore, you know, we don't need meat. I love meat, but we don't need meat.
Yeah.
We actually need more so the things like your livers, your kidneys, heart, those sorts of organs, because that's the nourishment. That's pure nourishment.
Yeah. Wow. You know? That's crazy. And so I'm even in Feng Shui and in
Feng Shui.
Feng Shui. So I don't want to mispronounce it. Feng Shui. And there are so many levels to this that touch on all these physiological aspects as well. It's not just about, you know, how your house looks or which cushion goes where. No,
far from it, because it goes back to the study of nature and astrology, real astrology as well, not zodiac stuff, which doesn't really have any meaning. But anyway, Chinese astrology, and it goes through to say, well, you know what, we have like those called compass school, there's Lopan, there's form school, there's nine star, etc., 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 all different parts, which are ways of examining the environment. It's not about the environment you're living in.
Yeah.
But you see, here's the beauty of it. I love this too, because we then worked in things like called sacred geometry and 4 pillars of destiny, which become very insightful for how you live life. And you know, that's the beauty of understanding levels like this, because it gives you a chance to get such insight into how you live and how you think.
Yeah.
You know?
I've always been fascinated by ancient Eastern cultures and Eastern traditions, and even, you know, their relationship with herbs and teas and all that stuff.
Oh, don't knock it, it works.
Amazing what they can do. And, you know, we dismiss it. I think we're getting better in Western medicine now, but in so many years ago, we used to dismiss a lot of it.
A lot of it's coming more now, because people have globally becoming, you know, I think COVID helped, becoming disenchanted with what medicine had to offer them. When you talk about herbs, there are 8 superfoods, or superfoods if you want, right? Now, they are herbs, and they are very much targeted to certain organs, like I said before. You can't get them very easily sometimes, but then you get the teas that you combine things together with. And you get some amazing types of tea, the tea that directly works on the prostate, tea that's good for your eyes, etc., and very tasty too. Yeah.
But you're going to go to a real, you know, experienced medicine man to help you.
Or come to me.
Okay. And do you work with all that, do you?
Yeah. We do all that. Yep.
Wow.
I mean, even porridge. How's this for regards to porridge? You know porridge.
Yeah.
Right? Our porridge right? First of all, we use organic porridge. We don't use Uncle Toby's. No offense, Uncle. But,
No,
but
yep,
first of all, it's soaked with lemon
yep.
first, because lemon is incredibly good for as an acidic form to help the liver, but also cleanse the body.
Right.
But it's cooked there. We might put in, for example, chia seeds, goji berries, sultanas. We can cook it with a ghee because it helps smoothness of digestion.
Mhm.
We would put in, what else we put in? Longanberries, chrysanthemum flowers,
Wow.
etc. And it's just a taste explosion in your mouth. But there's so many things that are working on different parts of your body.
Fantastic.
And it's just, and that's a simple thing to start your day with. It just doesn't take long to make.
Just porridge.
Just
Amazing.
porridge. But not wheat bix and calories and those things. They're not very good for you.
No, I'm totally, I'm in awe. I can imagine, I can just imagine. But
Oh,
the
yeah.
knowledge you have to have, and the study that you have to do to really understand all these different elements is immense.
Look, the thing is, it's a lifetime study. I mean, we've done a lot of study now across those three dimensions. Fully, I mean, I could give you, we're thinking of doing cooking classes at one stage to help people understand what you can do with things. But our coach and mentor studied the I Ching when he was 18. He had understood at 18. He's the only person I've ever find that can actually tell you how the I Ching works, how to break down the various hexagrams and how they build on each other. I haven't found
what actually is the I Ching? It's a book, is it?
It's called the Book of Changes.
Book of Changes, right?
But what it's virtually saying is, I mean, it's very hard to explain, but there are two ways of looking at it. In a sense, people use it for what they call oracles, which means we can lose it, because don't forget, the reason that they used it was to predict the flow of nature so they get their crops right.
Mm-hmm.
For example, and also show like the form school versus the mountain, etc. Shows different locations and things and relationships together. So they wouldn't build a house at the bottom of a hill. Mm-hmm. Because what would happen? They would know where the crops are due. But then they said, you know what? What applies to nature applies to humans. So if a human follows the same cycle of behavior and follows the trends and follows the patterns, they will have success too.
Yeah, and I can even just think of even applying that basic simple principle to having periodic rest days.
Yep.
Just like nature.
Yep, and exactly. I see. We show people. We say, look, there are 5 elements. Okay, so let's apply those. People talk about multitasking. I'm going off this track here, but multitasking. About 0.1% of the population of the world can do it.
Yeah,
we all think we can do it.
We think we do, but it doesn't actually happen.
What they're doing is switch tasking.
Yeah,
switch tasking is extremely tiring for the brain.
Yeah.
So we say to people, you know what? If you're talking about time management, which is something we can do for people, we say, okay, there are 5 energies. How they work. So why don't you set the time on day 1 for that energy, and that's what you do, etc., etc., etc. And that way you're not confusing the brain, you're getting work done that fits the pattern. And that's using I Ching as well.
So you can actually group how you do things in terms of energy.
Yeah, because the energies we have a question that goes through that. There's a whole pile of work we can show, but for example, wood is the first element that comes to mind. And it's an amazing element that's all about growth and adventure and rising upwards. So the question is what? Which is what can I do here? What's going to happen? So that's fire, and it leads to fire. Fire, of course, is obviously very hot and aggressive. So it's more about who. It's about the people connecting.
Okay.
Which leads to earth, which is about when and where. So the timing of things, because earth people are very, very compassionate and nurturing and that sort of thing. Which leads to metal, which is much more clinical and a how question for them. How can this happen? How can I help you with this? How can this understand this? Which leads to water, which is the why. Why is this happening this way? Why is this like this is? How can I learn more about this? Because I'd like to know why it's going to go da-da-da. Right. These elements all work together in sequence. And the questions indicate. So therefore, if you're looking at those questions and you group your tasks for the days according to those questions, you can then get a much better flow for what you're doing.
I love it. Any other generic strategies apart from looking, watching what you eat? Anything else?
Sorry, we got distracted, didn't we? I'm sorry. I warned you.
It's fascinating. It's fascinating.
Look, to be honest with you, it is so funny because science is now saying hug a tree, right?
Hug a tree.
Yeah, but you know what? That's been talked about for thousands of years in traditional cultures. We've been saying for a long time, hug a tree, walk. I did some work with in Bali with a healer, traditional healer. And before I knew all about this, and I thought it was a bit funny, but it was quite scary and interesting. But he said, when it finishes, you walk on the grass with your bare feet. I know now why, because here's the thing, you see, the earth is the core, it's about electromagnetism and the electricity, right? So gravity is nothing more than pull back in. And of course, gravity between the moon and the sun, that's all part of the energy that we all connect to. So when you take your feet off and walk on grass or sand, you are like a lightning rod in the house. You're grounding back to earth.
Ah, yes.
So
You're allowing the conduction in a way.
conducting. And so it helps you to relax and regroup and feel more at ease with yourself.
Yeah. And I
Sounds like a
suppose, I
tree.
suppose it's similar, when people say, and I find this myself, when I'm walking along the coast with the water, it's
Yeah.
more calming. There's
Yes.
must be a reason for that.
Then that's the reason. And see, people don't understand. It's like the heart, here's another one. Right? Think about, okay, a little thing. When you're talking to people, be aware of your feeling towards them when you approach them. Do you feel immediately connected to them? Do you feel a bit wary? Are you not, no, I don't like, I feel like you?
Yeah.
Because, and this has also been shown through Heart Math Institute in America. The heart has a very strong electromagnetic pulse.
Wow.
And it emanates out. So if they're not meaning, then that's why you simply say, I don't like you. I don't know you yet, but I think I like you, because that's that connection.
Energy, something about
Yeah,
that.
which is why they use horses in therapy, because horses' hearts are 6 times the size of a human, and so their reach with their throw out
Stronger electromagnetic
Hmm.
pulse.
which is why horses are so effective in therapy, especially with kids.
Oh my God.
Right. So these are things you can easily do. You just think about them, because thinking is the first step to doing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Now think about that. Think about. I'm going to offend people. Don't go to a gym. Why go to a gym? It hurts your muscles. Because if you want to get to be a Superman or a champion, fine. But for the normal folk, like 90% of us, the old-fashioned go for a walk.
Yeah.
It's simple. But even better, guess what? If you really want to, for 15 minutes each day, jump up and down on the spot.
Yep.
Jump up and down. That's all you got to do.
That'll do it. Yep.
That's all you got to do. So all this carry on, you don't need to. These are simple things you can do. Think about Qigong. You talked about martial arts before. So Qigong is a very gentle movement, but it's about connecting the mind back to the body. So it's a part meditation, part activity.
Is that Tai Chi?
No, Tai Chi is a more extended version, say the more martial arts side of things, the more aggressive. Qigong, there's Yin Qigong and the Yang Qigong. So Yin would be in the evening when it's time to wind down. Yeah. Yang is the start of the sun's coming up, and you want to get your body moving. So, it's a combination of mind, emotion, and body coming together and so there are things people can do so easily. Even yoga is from the I Ching as well, that source, the background source. Things that aren't offensive to the body, but help the body relax. Yeah.
What about breathing and meditation? Do you practice daily?
Well, no, I don't practice now. So I've worked it out. I can do it on my own now.
Yep.
I can breathe all the time. Now we talk about the Japanese type of breathing called breathing into your hara. So the hara, in Western world, that might be looking at the core, but the hara is right down deep. Yep. Right. So what they're saying is, if a person's breathing shallow into their chest, they're more likely to be tense and stressed. Yep. So if you spend
breathing into your diaphragm.
Right, even lower. Right, you almost feel it come out through your pelvis to the ground, because they're pushing down into it. Gotcha. And if you do that, say for 30 seconds or whatever, a couple of times a day, that alone against going to help. Yeah,
I mean, it's just even just taking 2 or 3 deep breaths, you already feel it.
Yeah, and because think about what it's doing. It's resettling things. Yeah. No? Another thing, if you're going to another one, you can do straight away, and I think we're all guilty of it. When you have a meal, don't sit down watching TV.
Yeah.
Don't stand up, right? Sit at a table. Yep. Not because we can talk, that's nice to talk, but because the body has to look at this positioning for a suggestion. Okay. And so therefore, if there's things happening, then there's a fight between the brain and the stomach as to who's in charge.
I see. Interesting.
Which is sometimes where you might get your heartburn and stuff, because there's that conflict going on for digestion purposes. There's only so much energy you can use.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, a simple sitting down properly at a discussion point helps the whole body relax into the conversation, into the use of food, respectful for what the food is.
Yep.
So
that's why I'm always fascinated by, in particular, the Japanese rituals or the Japanese daily practice. Everything that they do, they build a whole ritual around, and they take their time. They do it slowly. They do it, the right way, and they're really present. And I think that's really, really great.
It's important. See, hara, breathing into hara is a Japanese thing. And Doin is another version. Again, Doin is another form of movement, touching, which is Japanese. Yeah, the Japanese are pretty cool.
They're great. They know how to, be present in all the simple things.
Yeah, and see, things like qigong and all those things, it's something you can learn it, but they do it from day one, the whole life.
Amazing.
And like I said, the ritual of it, it's just part of their life, and so of course it works very well for them.
Yeah.
You know, I love it. Yeah, I don't always do it, and I should, but I'm a Westerner.
Yeah, and that's the thing. You know, you're in this. I mean, that's the hard part. You're in this crazy Western world. Things are moving at lightning speed, and you're being, you know, pulled from one direction to another all day long. It's hard to make. You have to work to maintain this kind of balance.
Well, see, that goes back to that first thing with personal genius. When you know who you are, you know where to pull back and how to pull back. And then that's so the food stuff's out there, but inside you. I mean, you know, with stress, you know, there's different types of stress. And so if you identify those types of stress, you know what's happening, and you can address how you approach that. You can address how you talk to somebody else, and so on. How do you get in flow? Which is something which someone talks about, but no one really gets the deepness of the meaning behind it.
Yeah. And what does that mean? That means being in equilibrium with the energy around you?
We could say that, yeah. But in other words, for simple layman term is to just be in the zone, like an athlete we're talking about. Just everything seems to be effortless. It's just time goes past and we realise it. What you've done is you're actually engaging certain neurochemicals in the brain, and the brain's at a certain speed of operation, certain wavelength of operation. So that puts you in that frame. But the point is, it's also a way that helps the body to relax. The body can then move itself with comfort. It also leads to what they call eustress, which is positive stress, as opposed to distress.
Yeah. No, positive and negative stress. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's big.
Like positive stress is sometimes a good thing. It's, you know, it helps us grow. That's, I suppose, what positive stress does.
But see, that's, and the thing is, people realise they know eustress and distress, but they don't realise that sometimes the most damaging is undefined stress in the middle. We're not working. We don't know why.
Yeah.
Usually in distress, you know why. You identify something's not working, but if a day's not going right, something's not working, but you don't really know why or what you can do about it, that becomes undefined, and it can last longer and be more damaging.
Yeah.
You know, so
I love it. And what about sleep? Where does sleep fit into all this?
Oh, it's overrated. No, it's well, look,
1 hour a day.
Yeah, no, it's sleep depends on the person. And obviously, different ages have different needs of sleeps and amounts of sleep. But what a lot of the experts in the West talk about is sleep is to get the brain to regenerate. But they don't understand from the Western and Eastern perspective that you've got a complete body clock. Not just at night time. The body clock says what time of day is what type of organ working and what does it need to work. So when you get to night time, obviously lungs, kidney, and liver are very busy regenerating. But if they're not to put in the right place, for example, I think from memory, 1 o'clock to 3 o'clock in the early morning is the gallbladder at 1 o'clock leading into liver up to 3 o'clock. Now, if you're, for example, if you're waking up, you can't sleep in that time, too many dreams, whatever else, chances are your liver's not working effectively.
Right. Wow.
Right? Because that means that it's not able to do its job, because its job is to purify and move things along, ready for the next day. So, you know, if there's an issue with that, but that leads into other issues. But the point is, so to me, sleep is not just when I go to bed and lie in bed. Sleep is looking after the regeneration of my organs all day long.
That's right.
So when I get to a certain time of day, it might be a fire time, which is a very strong element, which is heart, etc. Then what am I going to be doing that's going to make that effective for that? What activity, what type of foods am I having at the time? So if you look at sleep as being a regenerative process for the body, you're sleeping all day long. Yeah, that's right. In a sense, because different times things are doing different things to make sure the body is in
everything's in sequence as to when it's regenerating.
Yeah. And you know, the experts don't say that, unfortunately. They don't realise it's not the brain is just sits on top of your head and does what it's told. That's what it does. It's a receptor in a process. I mean, your heart and your stomach run the rules. They run the show.
Yeah, fascinating.
Literally, yeah.
Fascinating. Wow. And so, Jeff, tell us a bit more about how you actually work with people. And, you know, if people might say, oh, look, I've heard of these guys before, you know, everybody's telling me this, that, the other. Tell us a bit more about how you're different to maybe some of the other wellness specialists out there as well.
Well, the first thing I'll say is that you said three-dimensional. That's key. That's key because we don't just do one or the other. We'll do the whole package because you have to. What we do with people, I guess, like I said before, the 3 treasure diagnostics, how we start.
Yep.
Everyone starts there, and from that, we also then make sure everyone does some basic assessments.
Yep.
Now, I don't believe in the profiling system that we see in the corporate world, your discs and the Myers-Briggs and the big 16, all that stuff, because they're based on a flawed Western system.
Mm-hmm.
Right, our system where we developed goes back to the I Ching again. How about that? It goes right back to the source.
Ching is. I might have to read this thing one day.
Oh well, if you want some reading, I'll give you some reading. But be ready for it. It's not easy.
Oh boy, be careful what I wish for.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll actually we insisted to have that assessment because we will test their natal and we'll test their emergent. Mm-hmm. Because our argument is we need to know the person. They need to know, because how on earth can you build a program for somebody if you're not knowing where you're coming from?
For sure, 100%.
So we start there. Yeah.
Who they are first. Yeah.
Yeah. So it depends on the person. We do, well, not lately because of COVID, coming out of COVID. We used to do group workshops, which are always fun. Yep. One-on-one, not so much. We can do straight out, one-on-one practitioner work with people because we're certified to do practitioner work with people. But not my favourite thing because it can become very tiresome. Mm-hmm. It's more fun to be in a group because you can actually see the bantering between people and the sharing between people.
Nice.
I've got 4 or 5 target written downloadable products people can buy, take home, and do in their own time.
Great. Because
a lot of people don't want to share; they want this private to them.
Yeah, I was just about to say, like, group sessions would be great, but it's not like one size fits all. Like, I'm sure everybody has their own requirements as well, and you have to be, attentive to it to different people.
And it's a challenge, but it's fun because you just there's energy flowing around the room. Everyone's all fired up. But the downloadable ones, they look at the person and say, okay, we accept that you can talk to us anytime. Mm-hmm. So you're not isolated, but you do this work at your own pace, and you come back to us with the questions and discussion points. So it's got that connecting, but you're not tied into it.
Nice. Okay.
So we do things like work on persons. We call it, again, the personal genius. We work on we call the life drivers, which we've actually created assessments for values, for passions, and mindset. And worked out how that drives you. We've categorised that. We have an assessment for your home. We can assess your home and tell you what energy is most prevalent in your home and how's it working. Wow. Right? So we'll do all that sort of, whatever we need to do, and one for health as well. So whatever the person presents as needing most is what we'll do first. So everyone gets that. And then it'll either be totally bespoke, which means we have what I call an ideal reality plan, which says, here are the steps, like the bone, let's put the meat on, depending on what you need.
Yep. We tailor it to your needs.
Totally tailored. Yeah, group workshops in corporates are great because they get what they're told. But when you're working with a real person, you've got to be very mindful, as you said, about what those person's needs are or challenges are. And you've got to make sure you can fit in and make it for them. But so they can do all this. It's all available to them.
Okay.
But what we're working on, which I'm really excited about, and I don't even know how to do this yet. That's why it's exciting. I love it when I don't know something because I'm going to find out.
Yep.
Is to have a proper online community, which also has face-to-face with it, because this community is where all these people, whether they're looking at their home or their health or their mindset, doesn't matter what, can come together and access the parts they need, but also share their stories together.
Beautiful.
And there's a whole bunch of stuff goes with that, which leads into my most favourite fun thing of all is retreats. I love doing retreats because that's the chance to take someone out of their comfort zone and bombard them with things that they've got no choice but to listen to and immerse them in it so deeply. We used to do them in Bali.
In Bali, wow.
We used to. We haven't obviously COVID times, but Bali, not Kuta or those places, but the proper Bali. But
up in is it Ubud?
Yeah. What's it called? Changi. It's just not too far. It's about 2 minutes from Ubud. Okay. There's a resort there. So it's an entrepreneur's resort.
Okay.
One of our previous coaches owns. There's full conferencing and trainings, etc.
Nice.
So and it's great because then you can then access all the local things and learn the cultures, and the culture is an eye opener for Australia. It's not what people think it is. They are amazing people.
Yeah. Are the Balinese are they particularly well versed in a lot of this type of thing compared to anyone else, or no?
No more. You'd be surprised. Actual fact, you'd be surprised how the young modern Asian, doesn't know much. I spent their lifetime trying to be Western.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, and now technology and everything else, it's different.
So a lot of this really powerful stuff. Again, I don't want to get political, but the Chinese of today are not the Chinese of a couple of thousand years ago. There's a whole different cultural shift in what they do. Yep. So we're looking at that's like it's not a religion by any means, but it's a way of thinking which has been from that time. And if you don't want to access it, you never going to know it's there. It just goes past you, Yeah. But so retreats are great because you can do so many things with people. So that's our favourite 2 things of all, is to Well, 3 online programs where they can, or downloadable, they can play with and come back to us, retreats in this community. Those things to me, because we're not business people, we are educators.
Yeah.
And we love to, I mean, I've told you virtually nothing so far, obviously, but you get the glimpse of hope that there's a lot you can pick up on, what you can do.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
How long would a retreat normally go for?
We would like to go for a week, but I suppose in the present climate, we might go out for a weekend.
Yeah.
Somewhere for, say, 2 nights or 3 nights or something.
Yeah.
Because it's easier for people. But ultimately, our goal is to get back to Bali and
Yeah.
run in there.
Wow.
It's great. It's so, you just can't imagine. It's so cool.
Making me, I've been to Bali many times. I'm dying to go back. Love it.
Well, when you go back, go to, it's a paper, go up to obviously Changi area. That's fine. But it's changing now, because obviously, don't forget, all the markets half burned down.
Yeah.
Years ago, so they're still going through that process. But if you go back to Sanua,
Oh yeah.
okay, which is still very developed, but you go to the resorts, it's so interesting. You go to the Cure, and here's a plug for anyone who wants to go to Bali. You go to the Cure, and yes, it's of all the hotels, like a whole row of them, and from the street they really run down like horrible, but work inside, you're in a resort, big time.
Oh, okay.
But see, people compare that to, say, the Gold Coast because of the resort factor. What they realise is, pick your resort, because in the Mercure, it goes back to being very traditional inside.
Yeah.
And then you go down to the beach, and previous mentor and coach has what's called the Genius Cafe there. It sits right on the beach, so you get all the right foods, and it's full of people who are running business on their laptops.
Oh yeah, I love it.
They just gather. And look up the way, have a lovely breakfast. You look up and hear the bell ringing, and here's this guy walking down the beach with his cow with the bell ringing and the smoke going. I'm like, where am I? And you just can't help but just feel like you just laugh. You can't help but feel that so relaxed.
Yeah.
And then you're in a place to start learning and growing.
I'm feeling so relaxed already just thinking about it. I love it, mate.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, that's been sensational. Tell us a bit about how we can find you, how we can find out more.
Well, here's the thing. I can give you some links to put up, because there's a couple of Facebook pages, and I've got my new blog page running and a LinkedIn newsletter.
Beautiful.
Awesome. I can give those to you. I don't have a website because we don't.
Okay.
And 2, because I don't know that it's really any value to us, because what we're doing is more, it's not commercial. We need to talk to people.
Yeah.
We need to be able with them. So if you can show me where to make a website that is that sort of encompassing place that people come to, I'd love to know about it.
Yeah.
So at the moment, it's Facebook pages and blogs and LinkedIn.
Okay, great. Well, I'll make sure that I put all those links in the show notes so people can access them and they can find out more about your courses, your online stuff, your retreats. You know, all the good stuff.
Yeah. Hey, it's not cool work. It's just such fun. I mean, it's just it's a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle, which is why the name. It's a lifestyle.
It is. And I think, would you say that more and more people are becoming more interested in this type of, alternative way of thinking, alternative way of living?
Well, I turn it around. I think the Western way is the alternative way. Because the Eastern way, if you want, it was going a lot longer before the Western way started.
That's right.
Exactly. Actual fact. But yeah, they are. And I think COVID
is coming back full circle in a way.
People are starting to say, I want more.
Yeah.
There is more.
There is more to it than, the way that we've always been living.
Absolutely. And I think, and I know that in even the corporate world overseas, they're talking now about the fact that if an organisation doesn't take that on board and think about how they're providing value for their employees, they're going to lose them.
Yep.
Even over there, they're starting to think this way. Australia's a bit behind yet, but we'll get there.
Absolutely. So you're starting to do a lot of corporate
we'd like to.
Workshops and things like that as well?
Yeah, we'd like to. We haven't yet. We've tried. We'd love to. We haven't found since COVID, we haven't done anything. No. So you get listening. We'd love to as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jeff, I really appreciate you coming on the show. That's been a fascinating discussion. You've really we've only touched the absolute surface, but
very much.
There's so much more to it than that. So really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and welcoming the opportunity to come and talk to us about all this. Is there anything that you want to leave us with before we finish?
Well, I think there's 3 little words. I will. Sorry, you will. Here. I thought about that. Where did I put it? I want to read you 2 quotes. Can I read you 2 quotes?
Yeah, of course you can.
Because I would say, the 3 things. My own way of thinking is ancient wisdom, modern strategies, future success.
Yep, beautiful.
That's my little idiom I use. However, I found something that Einstein was supposed to say, and he had a whole bunch of stuff. This part stood out. He said, the ancients knew something which we seem to have forgotten. The more I learned of physics, the more I'm drawn to metaphysics. We still do not know 1,000th of a % of what nature has revealed to us. It's entirely possible that behind the perception our senses, worlds are hidden of which we are unaware.
Wow.
That's Mr. Einstein said that, amongst other things.
Einstein, he's a clever man.
Yeah, and Mr. Edison, who was even much earlier in the day, and Mr. Edison, 100 years ago, said, the doctor of the future will no longer treat the human frame with drugs, but rather will cure and prevent disease with nutrition.
Whoa.
And that was 100 years ago.
Wow, that is cool.
So I'll leave you with those two thoughts, yeah.
That's impressive. I love that. That is very, very cool. Well done. Well, Jeff, really appreciate you coming on the show. Hopefully everybody's enjoyed this as much as I have. Please check out all the links that I'll put in the show notes to find out more about everything Jeff has to offer. I'm sure you'll be very, very pleasantly surprised. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll see you very, very soon for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. Bye for now. Thanks again, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks again for joining me for another episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. If you would like to join me as a guest on the show, I would be delighted to collaborate. Feel free to buzz me on 0414 659 800 or email me on darren@suspendedanimation.com.au. I'm always on the lookout for great guests who can share their stories and expertise with my community. Also, if you have been thinking about putting your own podcast together and not sure where to begin, look no further. I run a really simple 3-part podcasting course, one-on-one with me, where I walk you through the entire podcasting journey. You will end up with a fantastic new podcast to start sharing right away. Feel free to get in touch to discuss further. But for now, though, have a fantastic day, and I'll see you next time.